Christopher Bell's name has been everywhere in NASCAR circles this week, and not for the reason anyone wanted. What started as a routine Sunday afternoon at Michigan International Speedway has turned into one of the most physically demanding stretches any driver has faced in years, and the situation is still unfolding in real time. The trouble began during the FireKeepers Casino 400 in early June, when Bell was running near the front of the field on lap 148. His Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Chase Elliott lost control of his Chevrolet right beside him, sliding into Bell's car and sending both drivers slamming into the outside wall in turn 4 at nearly 200 miles per hour. NASCAR's data later confirmed the impact registered at 63 GS, which Bell himself described in a press conference at Pocono, making it the hardest recorded hit since the next-gen car was introduced. Motorsport.com, Fox Sports. Bell climbed from the wreckage under his own power and was cleared at the infield care center that day, but the full picture didn't come into focus until X-rays back home in North Carolina confirmed a fractured left wrist. Joe Gibbs Racing announced the diagnosis publicly 2 days later, and Bell responded the way he's responded to almost everything else through this ordeal, with gratitude instead of panic. He thanked the doctors, the team, NASCAR, and the generations of drivers whose work on safety helped him walk away with nothing worse than a broken bone. He explained that he felt the wrist bend awkwardly into the wheel on impact and knew almost immediately something was wrong, but he also made clear this wasn't going to keep him out of the car. In his own words, he described the moment in detail, saying his hands were still on the wheel turned left, his bottom hand bent over, and then the force of the hit drove his wrist straight into the steering wheel. Doctors told him surgery wasn't necessary, just time, with a normal recovery window estimated at around 6 weeks. He also called the outcome immaculate given the severity of the hit, saying his biggest relief was that his head came through the impact completely fine. The severity of the crash itself became its own storyline once NASCAR released more detail. Officials said the change in velocity recorded was the highest measured since 2015, and Bell noted the hit knocked his earpieces clean out on impact. He credited NASCAR's continued investment in chassis and barrier safety for the fact that a hit of that magnitude only resulted in a fractured wrist and a bruised ankle rather than something far more serious. Instead of taking any time off to let the wrist heal, Bell decided to race the very next weekend at Pocono Raceway, one of the most physically demanding tracks on the calendar because of its 3 completely different, sharp-cornered turns. To make that possible, Joe Gibbs Racing got creative. The team shaved down the left side of Bell's steering wheel so it wouldn't dig into his cast, and his longtime steering wheel supplier, Max Papis Industries, built him a modified wheel to compensate for his limited range of motion. His fire suit was also adjusted to accommodate the cast. Bell openly admitted before the race that he'd essentially be driving with one arm for long stretches, something he had never had to manage in his career. As a safety net, the team brought in Xfinity Series veteran Brandon Jones, who sat through every simulator session that week and was ready to climb into the number 20 car if Bell couldn't continue. Bell was upfront that this wasn't a guaranteed full run. He said it would either be a full commitment to all 400 miles, or he'd start the race and pull off at the first caution if his wrist couldn't hold up. What actually happened at Pocono surprised almost everyone who expected a cautious, survival mode performance. Bell didn't just show up and grind through the day. He ran legitimate top 5 speed for long stretches, and at one point during the closing laps, he actually took the race lead, building close to a 10-second cushion over his own teammate, Denny Hamlin. The afternoon itself was chaotic well before that point. A 9-car incident broke out on lap 47 when Shane Van Gisbergen and Josh Berry made contact exiting turn 3, and Bell was among the cars caught up in the wreck along with Bubba Wallace, Noah Gragson, Austin Hill, and Connor Zilisch. Bell managed to continue despite the contact, a fact that made his late run at the lead even more impressive given everything he'd already been through that day. For a driver racing 1 week removed from the hardest hit of the next-gen era, that alone was a remarkable display. But the race didn't end the way the story seemed to be writing itself. Bell elected to stretch his fuel rather than pit, and as the laps wound down, Hamlin closed the gap and made the winning pass with just 5 laps remaining. Bell tried to hang on, but he ran dry approaching the white flag and had to make an emergency pit stop, dropping him out of contention entirely. He crossed the line in 26th place, a brutal outcome considering how strong his car had looked just minutes earlier. After the race, Bell didn't hide from what the injury actually cost him. He explained that in clean air, by himself, with no one around him, the wrist barely affects his driving at all. The real issue shows up in split-second moments, like contact with another car or a chaotic restart. Speaking to reporters after Pocono, he said plainly that he doesn't have the ability to make sharp, quick corrections to the car when those moments happen. He pointed to a specific example from earlier in the race, when he made contact with Josh Berry heading into Turn 3 during a 9-car incident, and admitted he lost positions afterwards simply because he couldn't react fast enough with the injured wrist. That kind of admission from a driver competing for wins is not something teams take lightly, especially with what's coming next on the schedule. This week, the Cup Series heads to a track nobody has raced before. NASCAR's brand new street course at Naval Base Coronado near San Diego is up next, and unlike the wide, sweeping corners of an oval like Pocono, a street circuit demands constant, aggressive steering input in both directions, not just to the left. Bell's modified setup was built around helping him turn left more comfortably. A tight, twisting 3.4-mile street course is going to ask a completely different kind of input from his right hand, the same hand still wrapped in a cast. Bell himself flagged this exact concern before Pocono had even finished. He specifically named San Diego as a track with corners that require shifting in ways his wrist might not be able to handle, along with Sonoma's Turn 1, which sits later on the schedule. When reporters pressed him directly on whether he'd even be able to compete this weekend, Bell didn't sugarcoat the answer. He said simply that he didn't know yet, that he wasn't in pain, and that the team would just have to see how the week progressed. That uncertainty has already triggered real contingency planning behind the scenes. The Athletic's Jordan Bianchi reported that Joe Gibbs Racing has discussed teenage prospect Brent Cruz as a potential relief driver for the number 20 car if Bell can't manage the demands of the street course. Cruz has been granted a special NASCAR exception to compete in both the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and standby for the Cup race, joining a small handful of other drivers given similar allowances this weekend. The plan being floated isn't necessarily an all-or-nothing decision either. According to reporting from Sportsnaut, Joe Gibbs Racing could have Bell start the race, run as much as he physically can, and then hand the car off to Cruz if the wrist becomes unmanageable, a move that would cost Bell any stage points but still allow the team to bank finishing points for the day. The Athletic's Jeff Gluck relayed comments from Bell suggesting he genuinely doesn't sound confident heading into this weekend, specifically citing how many spots he lost on a single restart at Pocono because of the limited mobility in his wrist. If this exact situation had happened under NASCAR's old playoff rules, it might not carry the same weight. A single win used to be enough to lock a driver into the postseason no matter how many races followed. That safety net doesn't exist in the same way anymore. The current format still rewards the top drivers in points after the regular season, which means every race, every stage, and every finishing position matters for a driver chasing his way into title contention. Bell has been one of the most consistently fast cars in the field all season, and a missed or compromised performance at a brand new, unpredictable street course is exactly the kind of result that can quietly chip away at a championship run. The points picture around him only adds to the pressure. Denny Hamlin arrives in San Diego sitting just 20 points back of championship leader Tyler Reddick after his third straight win at Pocono, a run that pushed him past Kyle Busch for sole possession of 9th on NASCAR's all-time wins list with 64 career victories. With his own teammate locked in that kind of form, Bell can't afford a quiet weekend if he wants to keep pace inside the championship conversation. The Coronado layout itself adds another layer of risk. With bumps, tight walls, and a circuit nobody in the field has competitive data on, NASCAR insiders have already flagged it as a track likely to produce an unusually high number of incidents, especially early in the race. For a driver already struggling to make split-second corrective movements, that's not exactly the friendliest environment to be heading into. There's also a broader conversation building around the car itself, separate from Bell's individual situation. Fellow driver William Byron has pointed to specific design characteristics of the next-gen car, including its tire profile and aerodynamic sensitivity, as factors that may be contributing to the severity of impacts like the one Bell suffered at Michigan. That kind of commentary from another front-running driver suggests Bell's crash may end up shaping safety discussions across the garage well beyond just his own recovery timeline. For now, though, the immediate question remains simple. Can Bell's wrist hold up well enough on a circuit that demands constant right and left-hand input, or does Joe Gibbs Racing make the call to lean on Brent Cruz sooner rather than later? Most fans only caught the highlight clip of the Michigan crash, the violent hit into the wall and Bell climbing out under his own power. But the layered story behind it, a fractured wrist, a near win at Pocono, and now a genuinely uncertain status heading into one of the most unpredictable race weekends NASCAR has ever attempted, is a lot bigger than a single headline. Bell has made clear he wants to be in that car this weekend if his body allows it. Whether the wrist actually cooperates against a street course built for nothing but sharp, constant direction changes is something we're going to find out very soon. If you've been following Christopher Bell's recovery story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to NASCAR Race News so you don't miss the update the moment we find out whether Bell actually takes the green flag at Coronado this weekend.